Around this time of year, it can be pretty hard to ignore spooky season. And I, for one, am not upset that we'll be hopefully trading out the skeletons, creepy clowns, and spiders for pumpkins, turkeys, and cozy fall decor. When it comes to fall, I'm much more sweater weather than spooky season. Even my dog gets in on sweater weather. And yes, that is a sweater weather sweater he's wearing. And I'm not trying to shame any of you that are more into the spooky than the cozy, but this old man would rather be in a nice cozy Mr. Rogers cardigan than a haunted house. I just really don't get the thrill of intentionally placing myself in a scary situation. And whether you prefer pumpkin spice lattes over trick-or-treating, I think we can all admit that we've been afraid of something. Probably when you were younger, it was the monsters under the bed, the dark, or maybe loud noises. But as you've grown older and wiser, your fears have probably gotten more sophisticated as well. Maybe your fear of spiders has stuck around, but your fear of monsters under the bed has evolved into a fear of rejection. Your fear of the dark has morphed into a fear of not being good enough, and the loud noises don't bother you as much anymore, but the indecision about what to do with your future keeps you up at night. I hope you know that you're not alone in the fears that you're facing. In fact, we're going to be looking at a guy in the Bible whose life was surrounded by fear, even from before he was born. Yet God was able to flip the script in his life from fear to faith, because fear is misplaced faith. Fear and faith have the same root, but a very different outcome. Fear is believing that my problem is bigger than God, and faith says that God is bigger than my problem. Both fear and faith focus on an outcome that has not yet happened. And when we lean in on fear, it so easily distracts us from the one that we should be putting our faith in. And that's why we want to help you flip the script in your life from fear to faith. Moses' life was first shaped by fear because he was born into a Hebrew family while they were living as slaves in Egypt. And the king of Egypt, also known as Pharaoh, had grown afraid that the Hebrews would grow too strong and overthrow his government. So out of fear, Pharaoh commands that all Hebrew baby boys must be thrown into the river. And while I'm certain that command terrified Moses' parents, they didn't let fear control their lives. They were people of faith who trusted God and believed that God knows what's best for them. Here's how the author of Hebrews tells that story a few thousand years later. It was by faith that Moses' parents hid him for 3 months when he was born. They saw that God had given them an unusual child, and they were not afraid to disobey the king's command. Moses' parents knew the right thing to do, and they did it in faith. They knew that it was better to obey God's commands than even the commands of the most powerful person in the world, and they stepped back to let God do the rest. As a parent myself, it must have been terrifying to try to hide an infant. Every single whimper, cry, and coo must have sparked more fear of being caught. So when Moses was 3 months old, they decided they couldn't hide him any longer, but they didn't dare give in to Pharaoh's demand and kill the child. Their faith was greater than that. Instead, they followed the letter of the law. They placed their infant in the river. They just happened to surround him with a waterproof basket that acted like a boat and sent him right down the river in faith. They had no idea that the Moses basket would be picked up by none other than Pharaoh's own daughter and raised in Pharaoh's home, where he could have been treated like royalty. Yet Hebrews continues on to tell us, it was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to share the oppression of God's people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. What is wrong with this guy? He's got the chance of a lifetime to be part of the royal household and live the good life, and he chooses to be a slave instead? But guess what? God is going to use what seems like a crazy decision to walk in faith in huge ways. Even though Moses grew up in Pharaoh's house, he knew where he came from because his family was actually enlisted to help raise him. That's why when he saw an Egyptian abusing a Hebrew slave, he got mad and took things into his own hands. He murdered the Egyptian abuser and then ended up running away from Pharaoh in fear. 700 miles. That's how far Moses ran away, on foot. That's the distance from here to Atlanta, Georgia. Moses ran away to the land of Midian, which literally means the land of judgment. And maybe that's exactly where Moses believed that he belonged. I deserve to be judged for what I've done. I messed up big time, and God should send his wrath down on me. And maybe you felt that way before too. But what if God's not done with you because you've messed up? What if your sin isn't so big that God can't still use you? That's what happened for Moses. After 40 years of living in the land of judgment, Moses is out shepherding some sheep when a burning bush starts talking to him. Since that was an unusual event even back then, Moses took notice and did what the burning bush told him to do, even though the bush was telling him to look his fear dead in the eyes, because it wasn't just a bush talking, and Moses knew it. It was God speaking through the bush, essentially asking Moses one simple question: do you trust me? And that's the same question I want to pose to each of you today. Do you trust God? Do you trust Him enough to look your fears of rejection, inadequacy, and your fears for your future right in the face? To ask Him, what's best for my life, God? If you want what's best for your life, guess what? God's on your side. He wants what is absolutely best for you. But sometimes best comes through times of struggle, years in your own personal Midian, the land of judgment. Maybe feeling like God has forgotten about you, so you're just going to get some sheep and live your best shepherd life. But let me be clear. God doesn't send you to Midian to make you think about all the bad things that you've done. It's not actually God's judgment coming down on you for living in fear. Midian is often God's training camp, if you'll let Him work through it. What feels like the land of judgment can actually be the land of great growth, a place to look back on your past fears and begin to walk forward in faith. What if God wants to use your own Midian to grow you into a great leader who knows the ins and outs of living in the desert? Have you ever considered that maybe, just maybe, some of the things that Moses learned while he was leading a bunch of sheep through the desert just so happened to come in handy when he was leading millions of Hebrews to freedom back through that same desert? Fast forwarding through the story once again, Moses listens to God's voice from the burning bush, and he faces his fears head on. He marches right back to Egypt, right into Pharaoh's throne room, and demands, "Let my people go." And if you know the story, you know it doesn't exactly go easily, but it does go God's way. Time and time again, Moses marches back up to Pharaoh after increasingly disastrous and destructive plagues, demanding, "Let my people go." And I can only imagine that Pharaoh gets increasingly irate with every single encounter. His country is being destroyed all around him. The river turned to blood, then there's frogs everywhere, all kinds of bugs, and now all their sheep and goats and cows are dead. And here's this guy demanding that we let all of our free labor go? But by this point in Moses' life, he had learned to walk by faith, not fear. Moses knew that if God said it, he had to do it. Even though his early life had been defined by fear, Moses wasn't going to let that hold him back. Because if you're still breathing, it's never too late to do the right thing. So if you want to move forward in faith over fear, here's a few steps for you to take. Do the next right thing, even if you got the last thing wrong. It doesn't matter how much you've messed up in the past or how much you've sinned. God can still use you if you choose faith over fear, if you choose Jesus' forgiveness over your shame. And maybe the next right thing for you is to put your trust in Jesus as your forgiver and leader for the first time. It's no secret that all of us have sinned, so we need Jesus to forgive our past. But we also need Him to lead us in our future. His plans are better than anything we could ever come up with. Have you trusted Jesus to forgive your past and to lead your future? If not, what are you waiting for? And if you have already trusted Jesus as forgiver and leader, what is your next right thing? Inviting a friend to church? Telling them about Jesus? Or maybe it's not even something super spiritual. Maybe your next right step is to join the basketball team, commit to being a more diligent student, or getting a job. Even the boring things can help point people to Jesus. That's why Paul wrote, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." While Moses was a shepherd in Midian, he didn't just give up. He worked hard for God's glory. He raised a family. He provided for them by working hard as a shepherd. Whether you can see God moving in your life right now or not, keep moving forward in faith. More often than not, we know the right thing to do, but fear keeps us from doing it. Let God flip the script in your life from faith to fear. Trust that God's plan is better and that He wants to use you to accomplish that plan. You have a unique set of talents, skills, circumstances, and passions that God has gifted you with, just like He did with Moses. and He wants to use them to do an incredible work in your life. But if we allow our fear to drive our lives instead of faith, we don't get to see God's greatest plans come to life. Just because life is hard doesn't mean you're not on the right path. In fact, most of the time, God uses our hardships, our personal Midian, the land of judgment, to prepare us for something bigger and better. Fear often keeps us from doing the right thing because it's hard. But God calls us to choose faith over fear, trusting that He has a greater plan for us, even if it's hard. The truth is, just like spooky season is now come and gone, this season of your life and the things you fear in it will come and go as well. The question is, how much will you let God grow you in this season? Don't let the fears and failures of your past keep you from becoming who God wants you to become. Remember that fear is misplaced faith, so look to Jesus instead of your fears. Do the next right thing, keep moving forward in faith, then keep doing the next right thing. God has an incredible plan for your life, and I can't wait to see what He's got in store for you.